How was Alan Ladd sacrificed to save Rory Calhoun's image? Alan Ladd was born a Landwellbridge lad on September 3, 1913 in Hot Springs, Arkansas. His early life was nothing like the fancy world he would later live in. His father died when Alan was just 4 years old, and his mother Rory had a hard time taking care of them. Looking for a better life, they moved to California when Alan was a young boy. It was there, during tough times and challenges, that his personality began to form. He grew up during the Great Depression, learning about never giving up, staying humble, and being determined, qualities that would one day show strongly in his movie roles before becoming an actor. Ladd went through a lot of struggles and different jobs that showed the tough nature of his childhood. He was a really good athlete in high school, doing great in swimming and diving, and even dreamed of competing in the Olympics. However, life had different plans. After getting hurt, Ladd turned to radio work and eventually found small parts in Hollywood movies. His handsome looks and special voice made him stand out, but it took years of trying hard before he got his big break role. Hollywood was not an easy place for a man of his size, standing only about 5'6" inches. Ladd was often thought of as too short to be a leading man in a time when being tall was seen as a must-have thing for male stars. Yet, he would end up proving everyone wrong, showing that talent, charm, and being emotional real could be more important than physical appearance. Alan Ladd's career took off when he appeared in the 1940 film This Gun for Hire as the mysterious Shitman Raven. Ladd showed a mix of danger, sensitivity, and cool toughness that amazed audiences and critics alike. It was this role that created his screen personality, the quiet, deadly man with good morals buried deep beneath a tough outside. He quickly became a top box office star, working memorably with Veronica Lake in several hit films, including Theglass Key and The Blue Dahlia. Their on-screen chemistry became legendary, creating one of the most famous partnerships of the film noir time period. Ladd's ability to show complex feelings with small facial expressions and very little talking set him apart from many of his fellow actors. He could communicate so much with just a single look. Through the 1940 seconds and early 1950s, Alan Ladd made his reputation solid as one of Hollywood's most reliable and magnetic leading men. He starred in a bunch of successful films that showed his ability to play different roles, ranging from tough thrillers to romantic dramas and adventure stories. But it was his role as Shane in the 1953 classic Shane that locked in his place in movie history. As the mysterious gunslinger who rides into a troubled town and becomes a reluctant hero, Ladd delivered one of the most ouching and controlled performances ever captured in a Western. His portrayal of Shane became a cultural symbol, a sign of nobility, honor, and the lonely cost of being a hero. The film's famous ending with a wounded Shane riding off into the sunset as a young boy calls out, "Come back, Shane," remains one of the most emotional moments in film history. As the 1950s turned into the 1960s, the kind of roles that hadn't defined Ladd's career began to become less popular. The new generation of actors brought a different energy to Hollywood, one that focused on realism over the controlled coolness of the Golden Age. Ladd continued to work regularly, appearing in films such as The Proud Rebel, 1958, and The Carpetbaggers, 1964, but the pressures of Hollywood life and his getting worse health began to take their toll. Alan Ladd's personal life was as eventful and complicated as his famous Hollywood career, marked by both heartbreak and lasting devotion. His first marriage was to Marjorie Jane Herold, a union that began in 1936 when Ladd was still struggling to find his place in the world. At that time, he was a young man with big dreams but not much stability, taking small acting roles, working odd jobs, and doing whatever he could to make ends meet during the Great Depression. Marjorie was his first serious romantic partner, and their marriage represented a youthful attempt to build a life together during uncertain times. However, the money problems and the pressures of Ladd's starting career turned out to be too much for the relationship. As she's dreams in the entertainment industry grew, their paths began to go separate ways. After 5 years together, the couple divorced in 1941, although their marriage ended. It played a big role in shaping Ladd's understanding of love, commitment, and the sacrifices required by a life dedicated to film and fame. Following his divorce, Alan Ladd's life took an amazing turn when he met Sue Carroll, a dynamic woman who would become not only his second wife, but also one of the most important figures in his personal and professional journey. Sue Carroll was already a well-known actress and talent agent in Hollywood, having the grace, ambition, and connections that Ladd desperately needed. Their relationship began professionally, Carroll taking on the role of his agent and guiding his early career. She immediately saw his potential, the striking looks, the quiet intensity, and the natural charisma that would soon make him a star. But what began as a business partnership quickly turned into a deep and lasting romance. The couple married in 1942 at the height of Ladd's emerging success, and their bond will prove to be one of the most rock-solid partnerships in the entertainment world. Sue Carroll was not just his wife. She was his trusted friend, protector, and manager. She carefully shaped his image, choosing roles that highlighted his stoic charm and mysterious appeal, such as his breakthrough performance in This Gun for Hire. 1942, behind the scenes, she stood by him through every triumph and setback, providing both emotional stability and professional guidance. Their marriage received the crazy demands of Hollywood, raising 3 children together: Alan Ladd Jr., Alana Ladd, and David Ladd, each of whom would later follow in their parents' footsteps in the entertainment industry. Swiss never-ending loyalty and love were super important in helping Alan cope with darker moments of his life, including times of depression and physical exhaustion brought on by the pressures of stardom. She understood him better than anyone else and remained by his side until his too early death in 1964. Their marriage lasted over 2 decades, a remarkable achievement in a time when Hollywood unions were often short and scandalous. It was a true partnership built on mutual respect, affection, and shared ambition. Hollywood in the 1940s and 1950s was a place of glamour and shadows, where the bright lights of fame often hid dark truths, manipulations, and sacrifices made behind the scenes. One of the most intriguing and tragic stories whispered through the hallways of studio power is the idea that Alan Ladd, the blonde, soft-spoken star who represented American heroism in films like Shane, may have been sacrificed in a sense to protect the image of unauthorizing star Rory Calhoun. At first glance, it sounds like the plot of a Hollywood drama. Yet when one begins to look beneath the surface at thousands of studio heads, the carefully managed publicity machines, and the desperate attempts to maintain the illusion of perfection, the theory takes on haunting believability. Alan Ladd, the late 1940s, was one of Paramount Pictures' most valuable assets. He had risen from a childhood of poverty and hardship to become a top box office attraction known for his stoic masculinity, quiet strength, and a subtle emotional depth that separated him from the more showy stars of his time. But Hollywood fame came with an invisible price tag. "You don't own your life anymore," Ladd once remarked quietly to a friend. "They own your image, your words, your future, and sometimes even your soul." His comment, though poetic, reflected the harsh truth of how studios had control over their contracted stars. At the same time, Rory Calhoun was beginning his own rise. Tall, ruggedly handsome, and blessed with natural charisma, Calhoun was being groomed by the studios as the next big Western hero. Yet Calhoun's early life was marked by scandal. He had spent time in federal prison as a teenager for auto theft and armed robbery, a fact that, if widely known during his early career, would have destroyed the clean, wholesome image the studio wanted to project. To keep Calhoun's record out of the press, Hollywood publicists and agents worked tirelessly to control narratives, sometimes at the expense of other stars whose careers could be redirected to divert attention. It's here that Alan Ladd's name surfaces again. Around the time when Calhoun's troubled past threatened to come out, Ladd's career began facing turbulence. He was subjected to sudden negative press, whispers about his mental state, and rumors of professional instability. Stories that seemed to come out of nowhere. "I started noticing," Ladd reportedly said, "that every time a bad story broke about another actor, somehow my name ended up in the same sentence, whether through coincidence or manipulation." Ladd's image was slowly being damaged, just as Calhoun's was being cleaned up and rebuilt. Hollywood insiders later recalled that some studio executives viewed Ladd as too expensive and too independent, while Calhoun was seen as more easy to control, more willing to play the publicity game. The theory goes that Ladd's struggles, including his battles with depression and alcohol, were quietly leaked to the press to draw attention away from other stars under contract, including Calhoun. In an era when headlines could make or break a career overnight, the studio's strategic placement of scandal was a weapon. One gossip columnist even hinted that Ladd's dribbles were exaggerated or even made up to cover up another Golden Boy's missteps. The emotional toll on Ladd was huge. Once adored as a symbol of strength, he became increasingly isolated. "I never minded the work," he said in a remnant of vulnerability. "What I minded was feeling like I wasted only one fighting for me." His words reflected a man who sensed he was being used, discarded, or manipulated for reasons he couldn't fully control. Meanwhile, Rory Calhoun's image remained largely untarnished until his criminal past was revealed years later by gossip columnist Hedda Hopper at a time when his fame was already secure enough to withstand it. By then, it was too late for Alan Ladd. His health had gotten worse. His career had faded and his once bright spirit dimmed under the weight of industry exploitation. Ladd's tragic death in 1964, a combination of alcohol, barbiturates, and emotional exhaustion, symbolized the fate of many stars who gave their all to a system that offered glamour but little mercy. Some who knew him claimed he had realized in his final years that he had been used as a shield, his reputation manipulated to protect others' careers. "Maybe I was a distraction," he once mused sadly, "but I guess that's the business, isn't it?" In January 1964, Alan Ladd was physically and emotionally worn down, having endured years of personal struggles, chronic health issues, and professional frustrations following a knee injury that left him in significant pain and limited his mobility. Ladd decided to withdraw from pressures of Hollywood and recover quietly at his Palm Springs residence, a place where he had often sought solitude and refuge. Palm Springs, known for its peaceful desert landscape and quiet luxury, had long been one of Ladd's favorite retreats, offering him a break from the relentless pace of the entertainment industry. Those close to him later said that he hoped the time away would help him heal both physically and mentally. However, beneath his calm demeanor, he was wrestling with deeper battles, lingering depression, insomnia, and a growing dependency on alcohol and sedatives to escape his constant exhaustion and anxiety. On the morning of January 29, 1964, the quiet routine of the Ladd household took a tragic turn. According to his butler, Ladd was seen resting in his bed around 10 o'clock a.m., appearing peaceful and giving no sign of distress. It wasn't uncommon for the actor to spend later mornings in bed, as his sleep schedule had been all over the place for years. The butler went about his regular duties, assuming Ladd was merely trying to rest and recover from the toll of his injuries, but when he returned later that afternoon around 3:30 p.m., had discovered a haunting scene. Alan Ladd was motionless, lying across his bed, unresponsive. Emergency services were called, but there was nothing they could do. Alan Ladd, the once golden Hollywood leading man, was gone at just 50 years old. His death shocked friends, family, and fans alike who had not realized the full extent of his suffering behind closed doors. The cause of death was later determined to be cerebral edema, a swelling of the brain resulting from an acute overdose of alcohol combined with a barbiturate and 2 tranquilizers, each of which when mixed created a dangerous and ultimately fatal chemical interaction. The coroner's report officially ruled his death accidental, emphasizing that Ladd had not taken a lethal dose of any single substance. Instead, the tragedy lay in the combination. His body, weakened by years of dependency and insomnia, simply could not handle Themix. This was a time before the dangers of combining prescription drugs and alcohol were widely understood, and Ladd, like many stars of his generation, had long relied on such substances to manage stress, anxiety, and sleeplessness.